Hi, I'm Neil, and welcome to the Crosscast. It's episode 3 of season 9, and today we are a third of the way through the National Trophy, and the Swedish V Cup series is done and dusted. In today's show, we will talk about the Falkirk National Trophy, the things that people loved, and some of the things that were pretty tough out there. We're going to be catching up with Xan and to see how she got on over in Sweden. And today in the Leicester Rond, we're going to be looking forward to upcoming races. The UK focus of which has to be the Clanfield National Trophy, this time from the other end of the country. And even though we're going to be talking about Clanfield, we are also going to be talking about some other classic races happening on the continent, including, yes, it's already time for Koppenburg Cross. I'm joined in the studio by Matt Payne and Xan Kreis. Xan, are you now back? It looks like you are. Are you back in the UK?
Yes, so we got back yesterday, which was Monday, about midday. So we kind of had the nice, finished off the racing. I always think it's quite nice when you've had like a trip, particularly like for us when we've gone to Sweden, which is just like not just a standard Belgium. Like actually have a meal, kind of like celebrate the trip you've been on and the people you were with. Because normally it's just me and my partner Jonah and my mechanic Johan, whereas we had a group with us this time. So we're like, let's properly round it off. So we had a lovely meal, then flew back on the Monday. But yeah, every time I go to Sweden, I just think this is such a wonderful country. Like the views are spectacular. There's so the two races, like some of them were in Stockholm and some of them were near Gothenburg and Varberg. And in the middle of the week, we had to do a 5-hour drive across country. Now, normally you're like, oh, that's going to be a painful day. 5-hour drive, sitting in the car. The views are stunning. Like it was such a scenic road trip that none of us actually minded the fact we'd sat in a car most of the day, which I think tells you something about how wonderful this country is. And whilst we were obviously out there to race, we like because we know the organisers of the second weekend quite well, so they gave us some gravel routes, and oh my goodness, the riding out there is spectacular. Like, if you're ever looking for a place to go ride a bike, I would highly recommend Sweden for like the bike paths, which are everywhere. Honestly, they rival Belgium and the Netherlands for their bike paths, and the gravel riding is so good. Like, pretty much princess gravel everywhere. It's gorgeous. But
Oh, that's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you know where you went? Did you go through Elmholtz down in the south? That's where IKEA's from.
I think
It's the home of IKEA down there. I've been, it's hilarious. As I, you think when you go to IKEA in the UK and you've got a restaurant and stuff, well, there is literally everything. Absolutely, it's the bank, the post office, everything is. It's a stunning country. And were they, in terms of the venues, were they in the city centre or were they kind of some way out?
so. Tabby Park's quite close to Stockholm. I think it's about 15-minute drive from Stockholm itself.
Okay.
So it's really quite close. But it's when we were talking to the people there, apparently it's this grounds that was meant to be apartment flats. But what happened is, I think it was COVID, so they could no longer build them. So instead, they let the council rented the grounds to the local sports facilities. So you've got various things. So you've got like loads of paddle bits. There's the local cycling club using it. There's horse races there. It's just such a wonderful facility. And I think it was only meant to be for 10 years. And from what I gathered, they've extended it for another set period, which is really great to see. Because even when we were racing, there were so many other people there doing paddle, doing tennis, just being active. And like, we really need more facilities like that. Like, it's such a perfect thing.
Yeah, it's because the community's fantastic.
For
I used to
sure.
live in Sweden years ago. Um, so, anyone that's, anyone that's under 23, it was before you were born. So it was quite a while ago. But yeah, we lived in Sweden for a few years. Up in the north, not near Stockholm or Gothenburg, but I've got friends still in both of those cities. So yeah, it's a yeah, fantastic place. Yeah. So Matt, I can see you've got track riders behind you. They look like track riders. There don't seem to be much mud on there, and I'm sure that
No, there's
some
not
of
much
those,
mud.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realise I'd left the green screen rolling with the weekend's action. Yes, yeah, it's kind of almost the opposite of cyclocross in some ways, and yet it's lots of sort of parallels. We finished after the last Crosscast. We did the the Gravel World Championships for the UCI, and then finished that, and then went straight across into the Paracycling Track World Championships, which is from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Hence, the rider over here, Mauro Shimon, who is their superstar rider. I mean, he's like the David Beckham of cycling in Brazil. Absolute superstar paracyclist, and really, really popular cyclist, full stop. And it was really good. I mean, I love track cycling. I love the intensity of it, and I love the things that it does, like close action, some real skill, some real finesse required as well. And the more that you watch it, the more you realise that actually there's a lot going on that you just don't see, which is so similar to cyclocross. When it's done right, it looks easy. And when you've got the world's best riders there, it looks so easy. And it's not. It just isn't easy. No, and some really great moments and some very moving moments as well. There was a moment where two of the riders on the stage for the podiums could see that the third rider was in difficulties, stood on the podium. And you could see in the middle of the anthem they wanted to itch, and they were desperate to go help them. And in the end, you could see them go, it doesn't matter how important this race is, being a human being is more important. And then they went across, and through the anthem, they were either side of this rider holding them up. And they could hold they literally supported the rider through there, then took them off the stage together. And you're world champion. This is the one moment you've dreamed of. You've become world champion. And as world champion, you give up standing there in your national anthem to go help somebody else. Honestly, I might be an old, cynical, grumpy what's it. But, yeah, you might not have heard it, but that might have been them other people crying, not me, honest, gov. It's definitely, that's what sport's all about. It unites people. It brings people together. It's one of those wonderful moments to see people at the height of their career, at the pinnacle of their sport, prepared to just go help somebody else in need. It did remind me what I love about cycle sport, whether it's cyclocross or mountain bike or road or whatever. It just the way it brings people together, and the fact people love it, and everybody should have the chance to race and ride the bike and enjoy that competition. But at the end of the day, also remember that there are more important things than bike racing. Although I often forget that. I'm going to be the first to admit that, particularly when I'm on a bike and I'm being competitive, even if it's not a proper race with people.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a difference. And, I did spend most of the weekend simultaneously watching the social media from Falkirk and watching what was going on, trying to keep up with the results of that as well at the same time. So I am going to hold my hand up now and apologise if I miss any of the results out from Falkirk and I don't mention somebody who I should have done. We're up there as usual. I was following the gritty social media as usual. And saw that you were up there. I also had a few spies up there as well. A few people that I know I can bring up and go, what happened? Tell me about.
Well,
what
first
did
of
you
all,
think of?
your spy, Tim. What
One of my spies. I have multiple.
Oh yeah, that's true.
He's no good as a spy now. You've blown his cover, haven't you?
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, but he's one of he's one of those people that makes Cross what it is. He's someone who he wasn't racing. That will come. We're trying to persuade him to get back to the racing, but up there pitting for his team, which is Gritty Race Team, and pitting for anyone else in sight. It was great, as well as working, and so fantastic. Those pit crews, did some good pit stuff all through the weekend. Good making the race happen. One of those, just someone who's there doing good things. But yeah, it was Falkirk back now. It was exhausting in every sense of the word.
The conditions kind of helps. I'm gonna take the gritty stand up. We're gonna set up, and it's gonna be blazing sunshine, and we can put everything out nice and what. And then you have like the storm warnings coming in, and it's windy and it's wet, and you think, yeah. And I have to say, I do not know how you keep everything clean in there. I mean, my memories have always been across was everything absolutely caked in mud, and yet you're still able to sell really nice shiny things and lots of
Well,
goodies, and they all stay clean. I don't quite know how you do that.
yeah, well, people will say you're always the last to leave, which is true. We are always the last to leave. But one of the reasons is that we make sure that everything is in a pretty well protected sort of environment. And it does take a long time to pack it all down afterwards. But
Do you have a spreadsheet for how to pack it down with instructions on there? Because I know you love a spreadsheet.
Yeah, actually, we do have some. We call them standard operating procedures. Which is a very, very
SOPs,
heavy industry type of stuff, and there are ways that we do things. And actually, safety is quite a big thing for us, because when you're exhausted and at the end of the day, when you're packing stuff up at the end of the day, and you're tired and you're trying to do it quickly, you've got to. Everyone knows this. So if you're chucking your bikes in the van, they're going to get damaged, and it'll be an even worse end of the day. But yeah, it was a solid weekend. So I was racing on the Saturday. So at Derby, I was pretty pleased with the result in terms of where I was racing. But that was a week after the Three Peaks, and so actually this was the one for me that I was the most interested in terms of sort of athletic performance, if you can call it that. And yeah, I had a great race. It was really hard, but it was nice to be able to be back to racing as hard as I could, and not kind of only going up to 8 rather than going up to 11, like I was at Derby. And so yeah, had a good result, got a 27th. My goal is always top 30 in my field, but the people I normally race were, shall we say, quite a way behind. So that was kind of like everyone had a hard day. It was such a tough course. But yeah, as for someone who'd had a hard day, just like everybody else, I was thought, yeah, this isn't so bad. This is looking all right. We had to do I thought I kept on burping a tyre actually in practice, because I was kept losing pressure, and it turns out I just had a full-on classic puncture right in the middle. But of course, being tubeless could repair it straight away. I didn't even need to set the wheel out, so that was fine, and raced it, and it was fine. But yeah, it was tough. I mean, the course itself was a bit different to previously. The new start was so much better. It was
good.
It was
good. Don't need to say anything else. Good.
Yeah. That was fantastic. Excellent. And then you had.
Yeah. I heard the start was really hard, though, in that it's separate. That the description that was given to me by somebody, not Tim, was that when you saw the women's elite race start go up there, the riders charged into the hill, and then it got steeper, and then everybody changed gear but one rider, who rode off. And then they went a bit further up the hill, and then they changed gear again. Everyone else changed gear again, and that rider then decided they might change a little bit, but nowhere near as low. And then they rode off even further, and that kind of was really decisive in the racing. I know there were changes because of things out of the control of the course designers. It's an ancient historic site, and as we mentioned in the previous show, there's archaeology and things important in there, etc. Things that they can't use. But was it just really, really tough? Because looking at the results and looking at the time gaps and looking where people were, it just looks to me like there were a lot of people having a hard day.
Yeah, I only saw 2 people that looked like they didn't have a hard day, and they were the 2 winners.
Wow.
Absolutely, okay. Everybody else looked totally broken. It was because the course. I don't know quite what it is about it. Whether there's less opportunity to recover, but it's just you have to be on full gas for some of the climbs. So for me, okay, I was going to say this isn't just marketing, but the best bit for me, I really enjoyed, were the 2 run-ups, the 2 walls. Because I had my Rutland studs in, and I tell you, I designed them for those walls, and they were so good. So we were like,
Excellent.
it was like xylophones, like that
Excellent.
on the xylophone just going up, and so that was great. I was delighted with how functional that was, and then because I've been training for the Three Peaks, it meant I was great, bring it on, climbs like that. So I was flying up those. Uh, and then you're at the top, and your heart rate's at max, and then you get to the top, and it's another little incline, and it's I don't know. I've not checked my Garmin to see whether the climbing was the same as the descending, but the way it felt is I felt like I climbed 1,000 meters and didn't go down anything. So, of course,
like that issue drawing of going up and up forever.
It felt like a spiral. You're just going up all the time. So it was really hard. The conditions, particularly on day 2, were really hard. Before we come on to the kind of the UCI stuff, so the big difference in the course was, and this is the most strange thing to say, but I think the most interesting bit of the course, the most interesting change, not the most interesting bit of the course, the interesting change was the most boring bit of the course, because they had this really long straight to the finish, past in front of the house, all the way along there. Then you went around this 180, and then it was all the way back again. So it was another really, really long straight. So in some ways you could say, oh, what a really boring section. Nothing happens. It's just long straights. But unlike everywhere else, you had a choice. You could sit in, you could get on a wheel, you could attack for half a straight, or you could sit in for half a straight and then attack at the end of it. And there were big moves that went on those sections, because that's where you had some control over what was going on. You could choose how slow you were, how fast you were. If you wanted to recover, if you had a gel or something, you could do it on those points there. And it was the strangest thing to say, but I found that it made the course really interesting in terms of how people were racing it, and you could see how people were performing.
But those comments sort of remind me very much of Ipswich, when we had the long straightaways, and everybody's like, you've got one bumpy bit, one woody bit, so the little Land Rover test track, you've got the woody bit, and you've got a lot of open ground with a bridge. How can it be great racing? But it was, because you look at it, and it reminds me also of Ruddervoort to some degree, where basically you've got one bump that they use for so much of that course. You actually, as you say, it's tactical. It's a part of cyclocross, is the ability to. If you don't think that being able to sit on a wheel is an important skill when it's windy, where were you in Derby when it's windy down across the back banking? Where have you been in Irving when we've been racing there? There's so many. It's not ever windy, of course, at Peel Park in Bradford, where on some of those sections it might be slightly downhill, but it looks like riders are riding uphill. For me, it's a key skill, and I think just packing a race full of features doesn't work. You've got to have places where you can race and actually be tactical in there. What was it like in terms of the real key features? I mean, my memories are old. I'm way out of date. Things like the big descent down in, the big slip and slide descent, and all the things like that, or the big. I mean, I know the bomb hole I think had gone, hadn't it? And so you've got a great big run up, which is great. But
we had 2 run-ups.
Were there any? Oh wow! How many iconic sort of features were there?
There were. Okay. Another brilliant thing that they did actually was they had all the sections. They had their names next to them, and that I wish people did that more.
Done, guys.
It was excellent. You had snakes and ladders, and that was really good. I really enjoyed that. The only complaint I've got about that naming is I was disappointed that they called slip and slide backwards. They called it the Wall 2. I was hoping that they would call it something like
Slide
Edils.
and slip.
Yeah,
All right, okay.
e-deals and pills, which is slip and slide
Yeah, okay,
backwards.
yeah. Slip and
So,
slide,
then we thought, maybe that sounds too much like a drug dealer or something. So, so, but yeah, they the features were there wasn't anything that felt like you were relieved that you got down it in one piece, like we've
So
had
there's
in the past. But there were lots and lots of sections where they were technically really difficult. Yeah, and I put it in the notes to my team beforehand. Look, expect to crash multiple times. Don't feel bad about yourself if you crash, because everyone is going to crash at some point, and
one
it is so
one
slippery.
comment that I heard from somebody else, and they said it was a course that punished rather than rewarded. So you couldn't make mistakes. So basically, you made a mistake, you were in trouble, you were a long way gone, and it didn't reward particularly technical riders. A number of if you're really technical, you didn't really get rewarded for it. But if you made a mistake through an error, you were then punished. And I didn't quite get really that how they can be mutually. So they reward if they punish people, they reward the others. But it seemed for me that's not. I didn't quite get the balance, and obviously not being there, I can't weigh in and say, "Oh yeah, well that's kind of like, well, of course there was rewards," because sometimes there are courses that just seem to say, you've got to ride the perfect race or you're in trouble. And if you said to everybody, Neil, you've all got to, expect, everyone needs to expect to come off here somewhere, and it's how you recover from that, then maybe that is a course that punishes rather than rewards. I don't know.
Yeah,
Were
think
you
you've
punished, Neil? Did you slide out and get punished?
It wasn't quite so difficult on my day.
Okay.
Did I? If I didn't actually, I didn't crash. I
Nice.
kind of feel that I did, but I can't remember where. Maybe it was worse than I thought.
You blotted it from your memory because it's like it was so bad.
No, it wasn't. It was all. In fact, in my notes back to my coach actually afterwards, I said, I probably could have taken more risks, but I don't think it would have put me any higher in the results. And Zan, you must know that well. Sometimes you have to make that. Right, I could take a risk here all the time and be a bit more sendy, but yeah, you have to balance it.
For sure, it's definitely a balance. I think you find that with racing, and I think particularly for example, the other races we've been having this year, like Derby and a lot of the Hope series, the races have been a lot closer because of the level of the riders has just got that good. That in those situations, that is where the risk is necessary, because it's either you attack and get out of this group, or you do something and get away, or that's it, you're taking it to a sprint finish. Whereas from what you're saying, it sounds like Falkirk, and if you look at the time gaps, looked quite spread out. So suddenly that risk is 5 seconds. But what is 5 seconds when the rider up the road is a minute?
Yeah, that's true. And that was something else that was in my notes, which was I was expecting there to be a slightly more. I'm not asking for it, by the way, but I was expecting there to be some slightly more treacherous bits, and I said that it's probably not worth taking huge risks on those sections because they're all over in 2 seconds anyway. So it's just probably not worth it. But we did see some people who were able to take out massive gaps, and we saw a lot of people not make the full race because of it, because the gaps were huge, as you say, both of you actually. So I mean, on the UCI day, it was pretty wet. Ended up raining all day, and it carried on raining, pouring with rain until after we'd got home, after packing up and driving all the way back to Nottingham, and it was pouring with rain the whole journey. But Fionn Drake led right from the start. Alderney Baker finished second, and Esther Wong was third, closely followed by Casey Iington. That was the race to watch, actually, between the three of those. Thomas Main, he also led from the start, and Toby and Dan Barnes finishing in second and third. The person who seemed to be having the most fun out there, I say there was Alderney Baker. She was in her element.
a really experienced rider. I mean, we know she's really skillful, but she's seen so many different courses. I mean, Aldney, let us know how many different national trophy race routes, how trophies have you done? Because it must be huge for somebody who is still, only just out of the under 23 category. She has done so many races, and I think that's where it comes to the fore. You have that reservoir of yeah, it's a bank, but I've done this at so and so, or it's an off-cambered long sweeping turn. We did that at York, around the side of the outside of that velodrome on the longest bank in history ever.com that they kept on, the longest continuous off-camber turn in the UK. It's like the world's biggest run. Well, when we were at Hetton, we went up that bank and it was like brutal off the start. And I think if you've done it a lot, you've got that in your memory banks. And I think when it going gets tough, that's when you can pull on that and you can get that out there. And Aldney Baker, great to see her up and there. I mean, it's nearly 2 minutes to Fionn Gilbert. And we talked extensively, I think, last show. You can listen back, or you can watch back if you're watching on YouTube. Fionn Gilbert, absolutely. I mean, nearly 2 minutes clear. As you say, that battle between Aldney and Esther and Casey closer, but then it's another 2 minutes back to Alice Colling, who's an absolute talent, and then you've got another minute, and then, I mean, there's only 8 elite women. Am I correct in saying this? 8 elite women finished on the same lap.
Yep.
As the leader, and in the men's race, it was 12 or 13 on the same lap. Riders on the same lap.
12. It was 12. Yeah.
Ouch. I mean, that says. When was last? Tom Pidcock, when he raced the national championships at Cyclocross. Cycle Park. I think Nick Craig was the last person not to be lapsed and eliminated, and I think that was 15 riders. And that's when you have Pidcock at the front.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows you how hard that race was. That is a brutal day at the office for everybody. Well done, anyone who wrote that. Full stop.
That's me. He's talking about me.
Yeah, I'm nice to you occasionally, Neil. It has to happen occasionally, mate. Put the date in your diary. I think brilliant. I mean, my only worry is it, it doesn't want to stay brutal like that all season. It's great having one brutal race, but you don't want it to be brutal all the time.
I'm talking about this kind of second to fourth race. So they were all separated, and it gradually came back together again. Aldney was off the front, and then it almost looked like she didn't kind of sit up, but she didn't seem to be attacking. Now, would you have been able to read her in that situation? As she was saving up some energy, because when she put an attack in, it was a big one. Esther responded a bit, and Casey, her facial expression changed, but I don't know that there was any extra to give at that point.
So obviously Ollie's a rider who I've been on a team with for many years. I actually lived with while I was at university, so we go way, way back. So for sure, I feel like she's one of those riders where we both probably know how the other one races because we've trained and raced together so much. So without basically trying to tell the whole world exactly how she races, she's the kind of rider I don't like on the front. Like, she's most dangerous if she's on the front. So if she's controlling the speed or leading, you need to get in front of her. And that was how I'd always try and race with her. So I feel like, to me, if I had seen Odney on the front, I don't know if I'd be able to read the situation or read, is she bringing this back for an attack? But I wouldn't have counted her out the second she got on the front. So even if it looked like she set up, I think, as it looks like rightfully so she did with that attack to get away towards the end, she probably was just picking her moment or just wanting to control the pace. Because when you're on the front, it's not just about controlling the pace on the straights, it's you get to dictate how fast the technical sections are, how fast you go around a corner. Are you kicking out of the corner, or are you just going gradually accelerating? Because if the rider on the front wants to kick out of every corner, suddenly they're wearing you down in a very different way. Even if you're riding the lap at the same speed, they're picking which bit's fast and slow. So actually, a lot of riders do want that control of being, I'm going to make the race fast here, or I'm going to keep the lap pace nice and smooth.
Yeah, yeah. Clearly, Fionn Gilbert, it is the same person. Depending on the name varies depending on where you see it. With being so dominant, I, I I must confess I was, for an impressive performance, it was mega impressive. I was kind of hoping it would stay together though, because I thought it would make our job so much easier if there was. But no, she was clearly the best on the day, and Thomas Main, it was the same. He was a minute ahead of the two Barnes, but it could have been more, I think, if he wanted it to be. So I think, bearing in mind who they're racing, and I think it's looking promising for them. They look like they're on great form, and I think also well, first of all, Deck Oldham finished in fourth elite, under 23, first year under 23. Really impressive, but also in the juniors, it was a bit closer together in the junior men, but in the women's juniors, bearing in mind Zoe Roach was over 2 minutes ahead of Heidi Roscoe and Lottie Lisserman, and bearing in mind what happened at round one with Peggy Knox, and then Peggy Knox being on the continent and having a cracking rides on the continent. So I think we've got some very, very strong riders at the moment, right across all of our categories.
We have, but I am going to qualify your statement there, Neil, and say that if you are, just because you are good at racing somebody on a UK cross course, that doesn't mean you're going to be at the same level when you race on the continent, because it is a different style and a different way of racing. And I'm hoping Zan's going to agree with me here, but everybody who I talk to, and Zan, when I've talked with Zan, it tends to say it's just a different. It's so different, and because it's different, just because you're up there in the UK doesn't mean you're going to be up there on the continent, and the reverse applies. Riders who maybe aren't up there in the UK, actually, when they go to the continent, can be absolutely flying. And we've seen Peggy Knox perform in continental style races for a number of years already. We've been talking about it for a while, and it clearly suits her. Mm-hmm. I'm not taking anything away from the fact that she's an incredibly talented rider, because you have to be at the front on the continent. But it is different riding, and we can say we've got strength in depth, which we have, but I'm not sure that is necessarily going to translate to the same when you go to the continental races, because I think there's that Peggy has got something that really clicks when she's on a continental race that maybe doesn't necessarily click as much in a UK race, where they tend to be slightly slower, tend to be more widely spaced race fields, let's say. It's not often you see the start of you see too many slog fests on the continent. You see some, but even the muddy ones aren't tractor racing, are they?
No, I would happen to agree that the racing is very different. I think you'll hear a lot of British riders who have been abroad will basically say it's a completely different world when you start racing on the continent. For starters, these starts becomes a massive difference. You go from, in the UK races, maybe you have 30 riders on the start row. They're all probably quite polite and quite nice and aren't going to shove you into the fence or shove you into the first corner. You go out to Europe and the racing is a different level of aggressive. And I would argue borderline in the UK, you can see which riders have been out by how they attack the first corner or how they will cut someone up the inside. Because we're almost a bit too nice over here, which I don't think is a problem, because I think that helps more of us get into cross and enjoy cross as a sport. But you have to be really prepared to put yourself out there when you go abroad, whether that is fighting into corners. And you'll see, normally, because there are a lot more riders out there, the riders are racing a lot closer, so there'll always be someone that is typically 10 seconds ahead or 10 seconds behind or even with you. So suddenly, where you'd used to be on a UK race, get some nice time by yourself, you're going to be fighting for corners, And like it's those kind of skills which, as you mentioned, riders like Peggy seem to have absolutely picked up, and she seems to be doing really well in racing abroad. And I think it's quite interesting to see if we can develop riders who can pick up these skills, and if we can have British riders who do start to perform well. But I think that is going to take another step of more racing abroad, because as you say, whilst our courses are quite different, it's hard to match it from the UK field to a Belgian or international field.
I think so, and I think that's kind of where it's that mix. It's knowing what is the purpose of the racing, where you are, what level you're at, what do you want to do, what do you want to get out of your racing.
Mm-hmm.
Does it want to be, I want to race with my mates and enjoy it? Does it want to be a really nice atmosphere but the gloves are off? Does it want to be uber competitive? And you're racing somebody for whom this is their professional career, and this is a professional race, and they are going to professionally race you into that barrier and professionally take you onto the off-camber in such a way that you get on the floor and you have to pick yourself back up again because you're not there in contention. And if you're a threat, then you're going to find that's even worse. So the further up you go, the sharper your elbows need to be, and the better your bike handling at doing that at pace. And I think for me, it's a balance, isn't it? We look at World Cups, World Championships, and international races saying, "Oh, everything should be like this." Well, I don't think it should. I absolutely do not think it should. And I think this fixation that every UK race should be the next Koppenburg, Coxsider is absolutely misplaced.
Some people have seen a message from Falkirk that they were hoping to get a little bit of extra support, financial support, to keep the event viable for the future. So it just goes to show that things are on a what's the knife edge is what I'm looking for. The numbers were down. I was misleading and wrong actually from the last show. Overall, my race category was full, and some of them were full, but not across the board. So numbers were down at Derby as well this year. Falkirk, they didn't have an event last year. The year before it was the national champs. So they've kind of got sort of 3 years since they last did a national trophy, and they were well down on what they were hoping for this time. So it's really difficult to know how to take things forwards in a way which makes things viable for organisers. We know we've got organised effectively 2 youth teams with youth clubs, Solent Pirates and Falkirk Junior Bike Club. Amazing clubs, both of them, both developing absolutely phenomenal riders, and giving so much to the sport. But at the end of the day, they're clubs that have come out of a youth program. These aren't being organised by big conglomerates and national federations and massively funded organisations. So it's volunteers primarily keeping it all going.
No volunteer should ever be in a position where they are having to say, "We are in financial trouble." I'm going to put it out there right now. I think it's absolutely off the scale how bad it is that we have organisers that are having to say we need help, because we have got numbers down, and that is the only revenue income that most cyclocross races have. They get a bit from sponsors, they get a little bit from race entries, but it's entries that pays the majority of this. And if your numbers are down, they're well down. And for organisers to be put in a position where, as things start to descend, as your numbers start to go down, and you're starting to see that income stream coming down, there's still this expectation that we're going to be putting absolutely all these, all singing and dancing whistles, and everything has to be this massive event. It's organisers have the world's hardest job out there. They are stitching together volunteers who give up their time. They give up even more of their time. And they are doing that because they love the sport. And yet they can be put in a financially difficult position, either personally or as a youth club or as a youth development club or as a team. I mean, you mentioned those teams, but you look at Tong, and that's another event where realistically, you've got a club there that's reliant on hope for their funding for much of their events, and that for me really says that if we continue, there ain't going to be a national trophy because there ain't going to be anybody prepared to put their club, house, personal, financial finances on the line because it's not viable.
Yeah, we go back to when I started the national trophy. It was all on one day. They were not C2s. It was a very, very different type of setup. There were race categories were all merged together. Um, when you started racing, Zan, I expect you were in with, it was all the under 14s and under 16s,
girls and
boys and girls.
boys.
Yeah, all on the course at the same time. Yeah, it was chaos. There was, and you went up on the day, and then you did it, and then you all came home again.
Yeah, and it was. Don't get me wrong. It was absolutely carnage to call 4 races, 4 race categories, with 4 groups of small people at a distance with no screens because there's no transponder timing or anything, and you just go, how on earth did I actually ever manage to work out who was doing what and who was in which race category and who the leaders were and where they were on the course? I remember getting going dizzy. But it was great. It was a baptism of fire because I started with that same thing. But we got to remember the numbers were much lower than the peak of 800. Is the magic sort of number? This if on a great season at the peak of Cross, we were getting 800 people, and post-COVID, we've not had that, and there was always some golden rules. I've had a lot of people contact me, not just in cyclocross over the past 2 months, road organisers, crit organisers, mountain bike, part of the mountain bike organisational structures, sponsors, all asking essentially the same question, saying the same question, which is, our numbers are down. What is happening everywhere else? How do the other disciplines do this? Not quite sure why everybody asked me, apart from I'm a gobby so-and-so who's prepared to answer questions and always says people, well, got a question, give me a ring.
I asked Matt that exactly for this.
Yeah, but the question is being asked, it's down. Now, those numbers are down. There's some golden rules that I always used to think when I looked at the season start. When I looked at the start sheet and I saw that we were in Derby, for example, we'd know that was a peak. That was a good start number. And that was going to be a high start number. If the following year we started somewhere away from the centre of the country, the numbers would be even lower. Bear in mind, we started at Derby and the numbers are down. That doesn't bode well for next year if the start is not in the centre of the country. Because after that start, no matter what, whether it's mountain bike or cross, you would lose 20%. Yeah, some years it was 15, some years it was 25, but you could work on 20%. I knew of my rider notes, I would be bidding probably 20% of that before we got to the last event.
Everyone's got a theory on these things. There's lots of things that could be done. I think one of the things is I was looking at some of the finish lists, just looking at who's there, and there are some where, in the past when I've raced at Falkirk, in fact, this was the photo that was on the BC truck, one side of the British Cycling truck. I'm on it. I'm one of the little specks on there of me riding up that bank, up the bank at Falkirk, and I'm being absolutely swamped by all of these Scottish riders in teams that I'm not familiar with, people I don't know because I never raced them. And they're all swamping me as I went up that climb because they're all really strong riders. But whilst this is a long drive for anyone who's in Cornwall, it's the local round for people that are the 5.5 million people that live in Scotland. So but that didn't happen to me this year. Now, I'd like to say it's because I'm really strong and I'm great, but it didn't seem to be quite as dominated by Scottish clubs, Scottish teams as it has been in the past. Now, of course, those people that are listening to this and those people that were there, you're the people making it happen. But I think certainly some of the categories, I was looking down the categories, and there were single figures of people that were obviously, whatever, Dundee, whatever, it's clubs which are clearly local, and that's why they came to this race, and some of them there were a very, very dominated. Now, almost everyone there were people that are going to ride the whole series. So there seems to be a not attracting the local riders that we would normally expect. And if those numbers are coming down a lot,
come on.
then yeah.
That if you want to know where you stand in the big scheme of things, and you want some great competition, and you do have the facility to go around the country, and you have that financial backing, don't put yourself in. Please don't put yourself in financial difficulty just to go chasing a bike race, for goodness sake. Then it's a great way of doing it. And it's a great way to see where you stand in there. I have to say, I personally think it's broken. I think that the national who cares who won the national trophy this year, last year, the year before? I do. I absolutely passionately care about it. I know the history of the national trophy. I want to see it continue, but how many people? We don't have 10,000 spectators paying to get in the door.
I'll tell you
funding the race.
I'll tell you my answer, and then I'm going to we'll move on to Sweden. Because I'm insisting on saying this because someone said, "Oh, you should say that on the show." So what I love about it is, quite apart from the social side, and to get that you have to ride the whole series. I've always said on the show, I see myself as a serious rider. I'm never going to get a podium. Maybe, I don't know. Come on, Ian, you can sort me out. But I'm
pressure.
No pressure. But but it's getting that throughout the whole season, in challenging yourself and all this. But what I really love about it, I love seeing the whole country. I really enjoy seeing the differences from place to place. I really enjoy checking into my Premier Inns and sort of having different locals with their different accents and dialects, and depending on where you are, and it's kind of that, oh, I'm not in a normal place, this is where I am, this is my connection with a different part of the country. It's that sort of thing. I really enjoy it. I like that element of it, and the travel. I actively enjoy it. If I didn't, then I don't think we'd do it. But Xan, you've been over in Sweden again. So you've done that series in Sweden. You went back. So, there's lots of things. And you said at the start how much you loved it out there. We know you raced all 4 of the Swedish series. Come on, tell us, how did it all go?
Oh, well, it's an adventure, and it's like, it was so much fun, but my gosh, the road to bike racing not come without its challenges. I'd thought, like, after last year, I've kind of worked it out, I've assessed the courses. And if anyone can remember from last year, on the first race, on the first day, I crashed on the start straight. I hadn't even gone through the start-finish line, I'd crashed. Well, I made it through the start-finish this time, and then was taken out on the first corner. So it started just as it did last year. Thankfully, bike was absolutely fine. My shifter had been bent in a little bit, but had a little bit of a chaotic pit change. Managed to carry myself back around. And once again, similar to last year, we had quite a few really good international riders come over it. This year in particular, Alicia Frank decided to grace us with her presence, which was great to have that challenge and have that competition. But it was like, okay, this has suddenly got a lot harder than I'd hoped for. But it's always really good to have those riders to test yourself and see where you are with them. But after having a lie down on the first corner, I was like, oh, okay, that's my race over. Because the year before it had grouped up, because it's one of those courses, similar to Derby, where it bunches up quite nicely. But with her pushing the pace on the front, it was stretching and splitting, and I was like, that's it, I'm never going to see the front of this bike race again. Thankfully, I just basically kept riding, kept picking people up. I think like the guys in the pits basically turned around to me and said they could tell I was stressed in that first 30 seconds. I was just trying to like chaotically get past everyone as soon as possible. I was like, I'm too far back, I don't like it. And looking at that, kind of rode myself into it. I calmed down and went, okay, it's fine. One rider. I wasn't really caring about positions anymore. It was just keep going, basically. Somehow did manage to ride myself into second place, which I was like over the moon with. Day after was pretty much a lot smoother journey. Had a nice easy start. Alicia Frank went off the front. I tried to sit on her wheel. You can imagine how that went. But luckily that put me in a nice solid second place, and it was just kind of after the fatigue of the day before, second and third place being a little bit back, it was like, well, as we were kind of saying earlier, like, I didn't really need to take any risks because the gap out front was 30 seconds, which ended up a minute. the gap behind was again another 20 seconds. So you kind of just sit there going, well, I don't, and it's really hard to push yourself in those races because you only need to maintain the gaps. If you're not going to catch the rider ahead, it's hard to bury yourself and really push that out. But I'm really happy to have like 2 really solid results. And as I said earlier, we had a really nice time we went into Stockholm one day because whilst bike racing is great, it's nice to actually go see the places you're visiting because it's so easy to just go do a bike race. You see a muddy field and an airport and you go home, or you see the Eurotunnel and a muddy field and you go home. So when you've got those days in between, it's really nice, I find, to actually enjoy the trip. Like, yes, we're elite cyclists, but it's allowed to be a holiday too. Life doesn't have to be just riding a bike. And I think that balance is really important.
Yeah. So the first 2 you were second and second.
Yes.
So that's right, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes,
So
so nice and consistent for me.
nice and consistent. Yeah. How did
Yeah.
Dan do? Who was riding?
He did
elite
all right.
men?
So he definitely rode into it. So because we took the van out, but there was only room for 3 people. So I flew out and Dan went in the van and drove out. So because he'd been in the van for like 20 hours the day before, he kind of had a hard time. Like, I think he was around 20th place, which was still decent. He was saying it was one of his better UCI results, but he felt absolutely knackered. And I was like trying to like be like, this is going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Just new day, just take it home. And thankfully, the day 2, I think he got 16th place, which was his best UCI result, which he was really pleased with.
Excellent.
Yeah, because
Cool.
as we were saying earlier,
And then, so I knew about those ones. Now I've not caught up with how you did last weekend. So what's the story? In fact, I saw a social media post. I saw a social media post that said it was something like Xan is in second place with a lap to go, and you'll put some comment on it. So tell us the story.
So I like to try and ignore day one of weekend.
Okay.
But like that's the thing, bike racing isn't all winning. Like you have to embrace the challenges that come with it and accept the days that don't go to plan. And day 1 on the second weekend ended out again being one of those group races. Now, as much as I've definitely got better at these, I went far too hard in the first half. Every attack, I tried to keep try and get away. I was like, I don't want a group race. I don't want a group sprint. I'm not going to win a group sprint, which is definitely not the way to think about it. If you're ever in this situation, believe in yourself and think you can win, even if you know it's better to do it another way. But I got into the last lap and I was in a good place. But then as everyone else was ramping up the places and starting to attack, every time someone would go around me, I didn't have like the legs to match it. And I just found myself slipping further and further back in this group. And at that point, I did just roll in because we were a group of 5. I rolled in 5th. And one of those races where you just got to like take it. But as I say, those are the races you learn more from. Like I had a young rider message me the other week saying that they wanted to like basically win every race they did this year. And I'm like, well, it's a great target, but you're going to learn a lot more from the races you lose than the races you win. And like I have to accept that myself, that those races that I don't podium at, I actually take a lot more from. Because that evening we kind of sat around the dinner table and discussing, right, you're grumpy about how you did. What are you going to do differently tomorrow? And I was like, I'm not having a group race. I am not. I don't care what is happening. This is not going to be a group race again. So from the first lap, I pretty much went from the gun, and I only had 2 to 5 seconds. And I think the day before when I had that gap, I'd give up, or not give up, but like I'd sit up and go, oh, this is going to come back together. Whereas on day 2, I was like, absolutely not. You are not coming back. I refuse to have another sprint kind of race. So even though for the lap 1, I only had 2 to 5 seconds, I just kept pushing and kept trying. And like the group behind just fell apart until I got to lap 3 with about a 20-second gap. And at that point, it's like, okay, this is nice. I've got my gap now. I can actually like race. Because as I said earlier about line choices, when you're by yourself, you can pick the pace for the whole course, and you actually find you can have a lot smoother race because you're not emptying the tank and backing back off. You're kind of controlling, this is a bit I'm good at, so I can make this nice and smooth. And this is a bit that I'm not as good at, so I can empty my tank a little bit more here and rest on the bits that suit me a bit more. And I feel like I can't say it wasn't a boring, like it was a great race because the riders behind, like there were lots of switchback sections where you could see about 30 seconds back. So I could always see, and I could see they were attacking each other and kicking themselves. So it was probably a great race to watch behind, but for me, it was quite simple and smooth. It was like, right, I'm off the front now. I'm just going to stay here. But as I said, I think if I hadn't have had day 1 where I was like, oh, I'm struggling with this, like I don't like racing like this, I'd have probably tried a very similar tactic. So I needed that to then go, right, do something differently this time.
Brilliant. And that was not a bad set of UCI results. A win, two
Absolutely not.
seconds, and a fifth. I think that's well worth
Yeah.
the trip.
Yeah, no, I had a
Yeah.
great time. Like, regardless
Oh,
of
that's
results wise, it's just so much fun.
And how was it being in that national champs jersey?
Oh, like, obviously I raced a few times abroad last year, but it's so special, especially when like you go on a start line, and like for me, for a lot of the races I was graded quite high, so I was always announced as the British champion. So it's just something that like every time you're like, oh yeah, because I think it sounds so silly because you've got a stripy jumper. It's almost easy to forget until you have people like telling you, and you're like, actually, I've kind of got this little bike. People don't know anything about me, but they can see I'm probably actually all right at riding a bike. And then actually being able to like put your arms in the air with a national champs jersey on, I don't think I can compare that feeling. It's just like such a, you are good at this sport, like you deserve to be here kind of moment, and that is so special.
yeah.
Well,
Was that?
you definitely do deserve to see there, but to be there. But yes, I can imagine it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That must amazing. Yeah. Well, I think it's great. I think that the enthusiasm of coming back and saying how good it was. I know a lot of
So,
people have been looking at it.
Yeah.
can I ask some questions about the series? Just sort of tying in almost to what we talked about with the national trophy. So, some great races, phenomenal
Yeah.
racing in there, and there's a real mix of age categories as well. Am I right in thinking at
Yeah.
the races?
So I think they both events had like your under 14s, under 16s, your vet categories, your like, I want to say like, I think they even had elite races that weren't the elite UCI races. So they had like age, because if it was gravel, you'd call them the age group category. So they are still your 19 to 35 or 40-year-old categories. And it was quite interesting because both weekends, both days had every event, but they did it differently to the 2 weeks. And it was really nice because it actually made, we had quite a lot of crowds around because they were racing on the same day. So they'd stick around and actually watch our races, which was quite nice because it gave you more of event feel and atmosphere. Like, okay, yes, it's a very tight timetable. On the first weekend, I think there were two 20-minute practice slots the entire day, and they were the only times you could be on the course.
I
But
bet that was busy.
it was, but it worked is all I can say. But yeah, like, I don't know whether them having the UCI races and the age group races meant they had better numbers or not. As I say, you don't necessarily look at Sweden and think, wow, that's a country for cyclocross, but the numbers seem to be fairly good. They had a few hundred each day, but maybe like, is that a format that works, having double? Because I think they only have 6 rounds in total and they're all double weekends. So maybe that might work better, but they seem to have the people there. And I said they definitely had the atmosphere, that was for sure.
And at that, I think it's time to take the bell and look forward to what's coming up in the Laster Ronda. I think the biggest thing for most people listening here is going to be the Clanfield National Trophy. Coming from close to the south coast, this is the one last year that got a bit breezy on second day 2. It had the interregionals, which was great fun. And this year we're going back, we're going again. The course looks almost identical to last year based on a course map that I've seen. There's always nuances and subtleties to it. The big difference is really around the main race course. So the start looks like it's much improved and in a much more central location, and the layout means that now things are much more clustered together rather than spread out a lot more that we've had in the past. So I'm really looking forward to it, I have to say. Now, Zanny, you're going to be there this time.
Yes, I think we mentioned earlier in the season that I kind of have 2 local national trophies now. So where I actually still live, Clanfield is my local national trophy. So that Pirates being my local youth club too. So I will definitely be there, and I'm really excited for it. I've actually raced not on the same course, but I've raced at the same venue already this cross season, and the race there, I just really like it. It's got a lot of elevation, which I think you will find a lot of like the British courses at the moment are missing. So it does give us something that little bit different. And I'm hoping it's going to lead to some different racing to what we've seen already this year, but I guess we'll find out in a few weeks' time.
I think the venue is one of the best venues. I absolutely love being at the top of the hill and looking out across the valley. You're looking out across and you can look down and you can see the racing unfold below. It's a great place to watch as a spectator and as somebody watching the racing. But then you can still get to so much of these the bits, and for me that's really key, is that you can actually get about and watch up close and personal and watch the technique, watch the dismount, the remount, the way people are getting on and off, where they're putting the time in. So you don't just get part of the picture on that course, you generally get a lot of the picture. So when you're watching somebody else's racing, you can be looking at that from a point of view: what, where, when, how, where can you? If you're a technical rider, you're going to go here. If you're a fast rider, you're going there. And you can see that. I think that's one of the things for me with the double day, is that anyone riding on the Sunday actually can watch. And if they see a section where a good technical rider is coming to the fore, they know that's where it's going to be. And I think there's a lot of information to be gained by going the day before, even though the course will change, because you can't change the topography when you're on the side of a hill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is very hilly. There are some run-ups. There's camber. Yeah, there's a section that I'm hoping to ride a lot better this year. So there were some bits that I rode. I was very pleased with myself last year.
Which one's that, Neil? Where does everybody need to be cheering you on?
Well, there's the camber after the run-up. There's kind of the equivalent of the wall. I don't know how it compares to the Falkirk wall in terms of elevation, but it's certainly just as steep. It's not rideable at all. It's like no one would ever get up it.
Is it not actually steeper?
It probably it could well be steeper.
It might just be the exposure because you're on the top of a hill, but it seems steeper.
It's quite
steep. At the top, you then it's get your studs in. And then you've got
get your Rutland studs in.
Yeah, apparently that's become my nickname in some quarters. Which anyway, let's not go there. There'll be some people laughing because they kept calling me this at the weekend. And then, but it was that section after it. That's where I rode it. I was awful. Hands up, I was awful on it for like 2 laps, and then I was okay on it for 2 laps last time. So I don't have happy memories of that next section, but this year it's going to be different. I'm going to be amazing on it this year, so don't bother trying to tap
somebody
me
take
be
a board.
Fantastic. But
take some number of paddles like Strictly Come Dancing. Please, somebody go down, take some paddles, and give Neil marks out of 10. It's 10 from Len syndrome, or it's 2 from Craig, or tell us. Somebody please do that and go down there.
There are a lot of sections of the course where you can choose different lines and have different strategy on sections. There's a section where I'm not going to tell you where it is or what I did, but there's a section where someone afterwards, my crew said, "Why isn't everyone doing that? You're saving so much energy." I'm not telling you where that is. Might make all the difference. But yeah, there's a lot of different lines you can take in a lot of it, and depending on the weather, not just wind, but there are some corners where you ride through them and then you see 1 in 10 people ahead of you sliding out on the corner, and then it's your turn, and it's like, can you carry the speed, because it makes all the difference, or are you gonna how are you gonna hold it? But yeah, so the start is now kind of at completely the opposite end of the course where the start was before. And last time it was really quite remote. It felt a lot, you were a long way away from things. So that's good. And it's going to be right up near the event village. Last time, some of our comments with the event village was that side of things, with the wind and everything else. It was like, this kind of wasn't what we were hoping for. The course was great, but it's the stuff all around it that where there were the issues really in terms of that day too.
We're all hoping the weather. We're all hoping that weather's going to be good, and you're not going to be affected. It's the downside of being on an exposed hillside. You are more at the mercy of the weather. But that for me is one of the great things about Cross. We've gone from Falkirk to a Derby to the side of a hill in the South Coast. That's one of the great things, that variety of courses.
So let me tell you a few things about it that might be a bit different to what you expect. First of all, they've got a jet wash sponsor, Ava jet washers, and that was the same as last year. So you don't need to drag your jet wash with you and all your water halfway around the country. You can take it if you want, but you don't have to. So that's a great. They're asking for donations, voluntary donations, £5 donation you can make. Then that gets split between Ride for Charlie and Evo Devo. So two brilliant organisations helping develop the next generation of cross. So yeah, thanks to Ava Jet Washes, and obviously thanks to Solent Pirates and the crew down there for making that happen. As I say, the course, it's that solid, really nice course. Yeah, they really know the course. The features are great there. They've got so many sections that are kind of, you could run it, you could ride it. Some people might not be able to ride it. Some people might not be able to. Some people might choose to. I really love that. They've got some. It's been dry there, so it was dry but it was dry before last weekend. But since then we've had a lot of rain, so who knows what it's going to be like. And they've got loads of really cool prizes. They've got we're Gritty. We're sponsoring some categories like we tend to do, and it might not be the same categories as we have done in the past. Actually, we might be shuffling things around a little bit. So, but that's great. We're really up for that. That's cool. Ava Jet Washers and their local bike shop, Velo Line, Press the Cycle. I'm not sure who Press the Cycle are, but looking forward to finding out. And then they've got a local craftsman who's making their trophies. So yeah, I've got so much
Neil.
going.
I think it's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. I love the fact that they're made out of Hampshire flint.
Yes,
the trophies. I absolutely love the fact it's absolutely brilliant. The and this almost flicks back to the very start of the show, because one of the things that we saw at the Para Track Championships was Stephen Bate, who's been multiple time world champion, based in Yorkshire, retiring, and he's retiring from the track. He's just a little bit younger than me, and he's not going to be competitively cycling anymore. But he's decided now, after a decade of basically winning non-stop, he's going to go back, and he's making trophy stands, and he's making medal holders out of the old Manchester Velodrome wood. So nice. He's gone back to carpentry. So he competes in the B category. So that's for visually impairment. And he's making them out of the velodrome. And I love the fact. So, we see Lincolnshire cobbles on the road. We're seeing velodrome boards being used as medal holders from the track. And we're seeing flint from Hampshire at Clanfield Cross. 3 different disciplines, 3 very much of the discipline trophies. Absolutely love it. If you know of more, let me know, please. Yeah. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, there's some great trophies out there. I'm looking forward to Clanfield. If you want to find out more, well, first of all, if you want to get all the emails, get your entry in. Don't forget to get your entries in on time. It's going to be a great event. If you're not sure, do it. It's a cool course. It's a really nice place to be. Organisation's great, and it's proper cross in the sense of it's got lots of fun stuff in there as well. There were so many sections where you feel good about yourself when after you've written it well, and you're kind of kicking yourself if you haven't. And clanfieldcross.uk, I think it's the website address. So follow them, do all the stuff. You know what to do. If you're capable of downloading a podcast, you know how to find things online. But we'll be there, or two out of 3 of us will be there in person. So do come and
I was going to say,
there are some other.
Is this something I don't know about here?
There are some other continental races coming up over the next couple of weeks. Overijse, we'll kind of mention this, which is it's just a bit of everything. Take all of the bits of cyclocross, mix them all up, and it's kind of like a trail mix. Yeah, trail mix. Oh, why haven't I thought that before? It's trail mix. So you've got sand, you've got climbs, you've got woods, you've got grass, you've got cobbles, you've got footpaths, you've got road, and if you haven't got power, you're going to be struggling. Sam, did you do Overijse?
So I've done Overijse. I want to say 2022 and 2023 as World Cups. I think that's when it was last on the World Cup calendar.
World Cup, yeah.
Which it is such a tough course. It gives you a bit of like Koppenburg vibes with that. Well, the year I did it, it was the cobbled climb up the start. I think they might start it down on the bottom on the road now. Then you've got like the tricky descent, kind of gives you like slightly more vibes, but a lot tamer than kind of a typical Namur course. They've got like the flatter sections. It really, as you say, it's definitely one of those courses that gives you a bit of everything. If there's one I'd say to watch to understand what cross is, I'd probably point you towards Overijse to really get a feel for it.
Yeah. I don't know. I've not seen a list of people that are going over. If you are going over to it, then see all the best for that. I expect we'll get a decent number of riders over there. We had some over last
Evo Devo
weekend,
are going
actually. Oh,
the
wow!
Evo Devo squad are going. So Evo Devo are going. So they are heading out there. And in fact, I think I'm not. Do you know what? I'm just going to say anyway and hang the consequences. I know that my super spy is going to be out there.
Really? Oh, nice.
Throwing bikes for people. Yeah. Mr. I will pit for anybody and everybody has been taken up on pitting for anybody and everybody. So he's going over to Overijse. So
superb.
we may have some spies. The super spy is headed over there. The man who's covered Neil Blue earlier in the show. Well done, Neil. Not bitter about that much. You can ask him. He's on your team.
Fantastic. Yeah. So Overijse, and the other one, which is Koppenburg. Koppenburg Cross. Now, Koppenburg Cross is an important date in the diary. Now, if you want to know when the clocks are changing, clocks change the Sunday before Koppenburg Cross. Right, that's how you know when the clocks are going to change. So Sunday before Koppenburg Cross, you need to change your clocks. That's how I know when to change my clocks. So I don't know how the rest of the world works it out, but surely this is why it's at that time. And it's also, that's when you put your mudguards on. After Koppenburg Cross, you put your
You're showing your age here, Neil. Big style. I mean, I hate to break it to you, most people don't use mudguards now. It's just
on your winter bike, yeah.
No. Did you know what? It's like it's a dying art. It's putting mudguards on. It's a dying art.
Okay,
we're old. Sam, do you ride with mudguards on? Come on.
I have never ever had a mudguard on any of my bikes. Sorry.
There we go. Point proved. There you go. We're old, Neil. It was a different generation thing. Mudguards or fenders. Yeah.
You know what? Actually, let me tell you another getting old story. Lotta, who it was good to see. She came along to Falkirk. Was supposed to be racing, wasn't feeling well actually. So hopefully you're feeling better, Lotta. But when I did the 3 peaks, I did the bit of padding on the top tube. And she described it. She said, "Oh, that shows you that you did it on canties." So, people that have ridden the 3 peaks on cantilever brakes are the ones who put the padding on the top tube. And I thought, I'm not sure I agree, but I love it. I love the picture.
It is a sign of getting old. Yeah. Actually, Koppenburg Cross, we should mention, it is the start of the X2O Trophy this year as well. So Koppenburg Cross, Rappen Cross, Flandrian Cross, Plage Cross, Assen Cross. I think Baal's part of the same.
Yeah, normally is.
Yeah.
Baal will be part of X2O, won't it? And then I think we go to, is it Brussels to finish? Because it's
usually
Niels University.
I think there's sometimes Lille as well, isn't there?
Yes, Lille, the
quarter. Is it called quarter cross on the
something? I don't know. Somebody will tell us.
I think it's
there you go. Neil could tell us. There you go.
Yeah, if you go to the other tab on my spreadsheet, I can then filter for X2O. No, I'm not going to. But if anyone could get me a duck hat, then I'd make me quite pleased. But looking forward to that. So Koppenburg Cross, characterised by, of course, the Koppenburg climb. So you come out of you go up the climb, turn right, and then you kind of basically whizzing your way back down again. through a few bits of trees. There's some really small, like roady sections that, as in they're not road sections, but there's a few bits where you kind of dip down and cross a bit. And then there's down by the hospitality tents, drinking places, which it can always be quite hilarious. But Koppenburg Cross,
VIP area, I think you're trying to describe there.
Oh yeah, VIP.
But it is actually VIP you just described, I'm sure.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. So they've, yeah.
I mean,
very inebriated people. Is that what it stands for?
But, yeah. Quite possible.
It's somewhere where you can see huge differences between bravery and skill and grip. Many examples of amazing racing on the Koppenburg Cross. Always worth watching it all the way to the finish, because the last few laps you can sometimes get big changes, and who's got the energy for sprinting up that final climb at the finish? You can see.
I think it's positions, a course, isn't it? Yeah, it's a course where because of the nature of the course, because it is so physically demanding on that climb, if you can go from first to 15th sometimes on that final climb if you're mid pack, and even we've even seen those iconic pictures of Matthew van der Poel in the fetal position, Wout van Aert, curled up, looking like we all normally do, and proving that they're actually human. That at the end of a cross race and looking like they're actually spent rather than their usual, yes, come on, and what was that? That was nothing kind of look. They actually look like they tried on that one. I think that for me tells you so much about Koppenburg Cross. It's one of my least favourite races, one of my favourite races all at the same time, because it's so often just a slogfest, but yet in other ways it just proves that people are human, and sometimes we see some great descending skills. We've seen some real good bike handlers come to the fore there on that.
I think it's going to be a particularly interesting year this year, because in the past 3 years, European Champs has normally fallen very close, typically the same week as Koppenburg. So we've often seen a lot of the big riders skip it in favour of European Champs. With European Champs being a whole week later this year, I'm expecting we'll see a lot stronger field than we have in previous years, which might mean closer racing. But I just think it's going to make it a lot more interesting if we do have all the big names turning up to it, to really see how it's going to go down this year.
Yeah, there's been some fantastic races there, so many times. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Koppenburg Cross. Well, I think that we are on our final lap here, so we're going to wrap things up. It's been great to catch up with you both, as always. Thanks to all of you who have contributed to covering our show costs through buymeacoffee.com. Every one of those really appreciated. I need to send a thank you actually to those people who did it from last time. I've not done that yet, so you might even get that before you hear this show. So thanks everyone. It's been great, and obviously it keeps us going and keeps our costs covered. So that's superb. So go to buymeacoffee.com/crosscast and you can buy us a virtual coffee, which goes to our overheads for keeping us going. So Xan, is your next race Clanfield?
Yes, my next race will be at Clanfield. So just over a week to go now, which is quite cool.
Excellent. And if people want to find out about what you're up to, then where can we do that?
So I like to keep it nice and simple. I am Xan Cruz on pretty much all social media platforms. And on Instagram, you can also follow kind of race day updates at Xan Cruz Racing as well. Matt, whereabouts are we finding you at the moment?
You can find me hiding in a bunker for all of the abuse for saying that the National Trophy is broken and therefore needs changing. No, seriously, don't get in touch. You can get in touch at Matt Fix the Paint at Instagram. On Instagram, it still exists. You can get hold of me there. The Facebook account does exist. Occasionally, I do actually switch them on and read them, but take it personally if I don't read them for a while. It's social media is low on my list of priorities at the moment. Sleep is high on my list of priorities after having done stupid o'clock hours on the way through. You can catch up with me on the mic next. I think, I don't want to say this out loud, but this weekend it's 1 gig, 2 sets of races for the first time in I can't remember how long. which now guarantees somebody's going to ring and go, "Oh, can you just do this?" But no, in theory, I'm going to be running around fixing a barn that's got a big hole in the roof, so big in fact that it's wetter in there than it is outside at times. And I might even ride the bike this week for the first time since July.
Excellent.
Neil, where can people catch up with you, and just as importantly, if not more importantly, Gritty?
Yeah, so you can find us you'll find me at Crosscast Neil, or you can come and say hi. We're going to be at the local league this weekend, which is coming from Roxo, so that's going to be fun. So we'll be there. I'm racing there on Saturday, and that's the league that we sponsor now. So that's really nice to give back to that. And the leaders' jerseys in the under 14 and under 16, so they get to wear our leaders' jerseys that we made. They're cool. Look awesome. The business. We love those. And then on Sunday we're going to be at the National Hill Climb. Not quite sure how it's going to work logistically. We're kind of scratching our heads a bit as to how it's going to all happen, but it will. So yeah, again, do
I love your optimism here, Neil. We're recording this 4 or 5 days out, and it's like at least you got the standard operating procedures in your spreadsheets. Neil, you'll be fine. Don't worry.
Give me a spreadsheet. I'm fine.
Planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah. That was the question, wasn't it? Where am I going to be? What am I doing? And so you can find us also if you go to gritty.co.uk, then you'll be able to see all the cool stuff. You can order your studs on there. You can order your zip-offs, anything else that you need. You can even order the Cyclocross Icons T-shirt, the first round of which is Koppenburg. So you can get that profile and you can kind of watch it across on your chest, like the profile each lap. I did that last year. It was brilliant. I really had fun. Anyway,
if you do that, somebody please record it, put it on social media. Sat there with your T-shirt on, going, "Yeah, they're going up this bit, they're going down that bit." Yeah, this is where the attack went, and this is where they. Yeah, somebody, please do that for us. Send it to Neil or Zad or me, and we'll try and blackmail Neil with that later.
Yeah. And as we take the checkered flag, we say thanks for joining us. Remember to support those that support the sport. And until next time, we'll see you on the other side of the tape. Bye.